algebra and lab science this fall in the 9th grade. It can be done.
The parents themselves also are very motivated. They're asking, when is our opportunity? I'm planning right now a work session for the parents, because they've been asking, when can you tell us what to do with these students now? They want help.
Very good. Sonny Scott?
How much does all this cost?
Okay, there are two parts to this question. Okay, we do have the in-kind session part, that's about $35,000, and then we have the part that's donated by all the partners, and that's about $70,000.
Any other questions?
Is that for the whole year?
That's for the summer.
Oh, now let me mention that these funds were donated by the partners and by Thomas Nelson Community College, and we did not go out for any outside grants, federal, state, otherwise. This was done locally in-house.
The $70,000, is that for the 4 week summer?
No, that's for the, and also gearing up for the next session coming up.
$1,000 a student, and that includes the matching income.
Let me also mention that this was an opportunity for teachers, myself being a teacher, to actually get a chance to be free of the curriculum that we have in front of us and have to really get through, because we've got to get from point A to point Z in a certain amount of time. At least we were free of that, to be able to be creative, to do some of those fun things we always wanted to do. And a lot of the teachers really just went hog wild and did some really very cute things. And they found that they really worked, they really sparked interest, and the students really did turn out.
Thank you. Dr. Cooper, any questions?
It does work. I know 5 of the students, at least one of them lived in my own neighborhood, and it does work. So there's something to it.
Thank you.
Very
And can we have a rundown or a written report from you?
Yes, we have a report that is being prepared, because the students, that's one remark that the students did make. We've evaluated everything, and the students said, that's one thing we can cut down on, is all the writing. So we do have a report that will be submitted to the steering committee, and the steering committee will make sure that you get a copy.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from committee members? If not, thank you very much for that presentation. We look forward to getting that copy of the report.
Thank you.
Let me call the next panel, Mentoring, Internship, Cooperative Education, Apprenticeship Initiative. Charlotte Kaczynski and Cecil Phillips. Charlotte from the Peninsula Chamber of Commerce, and Cecil Phillips is the project co-director.
Mr. Secretary, I wish to apologize on behalf of Mrs. Kaczynski this evening. She had a severe back injury yesterday, and she tried her best today to stay at work, but finally at 3 o'clock she called me and she says, I must give up. So she asked me if I would present on her behalf, representing the Chamber and the other side of the partnership, the Thomas Nelson Community College. Being a classroom teacher, I like to use an overhead to try and tie all of these programs together in a continuum due to the lateness of the hour, I'll be very brief in describing this. You've heard a lot about partnerships, the necessary for partnerships between business, industry, and education. You have a pamphlet before you about the Big Ed Council, which is a collaboration council of business, industry, government, education of the arm of the Peninsula Chamber of Commerce. We have joined in, Thomas Nelson has joined in to a partnership with the Chamber of Commerce to put together programs in mentorships, internships, co-ops, and apprentice training, leading to a better workforce in the future. So far on the Peninsula this past year, there were 137 business industry education partnerships. And I think that speaks well of this area. We have, for many, many years, had excellent partnerships between the higher education, the secondary schools, and business and industry and government. We have formed many of these different partnerships for better programs for kids And this is another example of another program tying together all the elements contained in ADAMS, the Regional Summer Institute. We're looking at mentorships for the middle school students with the ADAMS and for mentorships for the Regional Summer Program. Following the mentorships, these kids can feed into internships at the 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. We'll have cooperative education efforts at the 11th and 12th grade and also at the community college level, and this finally feeding into the workforce and, well, which could be apprenticeship training. So the efforts that we're making through the business and industry and education partnerships is to complete this cycle with the hub and the key to the whole effort being those partnerships. The effort that industry makes in this area with us is fantastic. I don't believe I've ever had to call on any industry and said that we need some help, that they didn't very quickly say, what do you need? And they joined with us in a hurry. In the training committee, which is part of the Chamber of Commerce, we have equal numbers of business and industry and education representatives from the community college, all the local secondary schools, and the business and industry partners. From that has come this continuum to have the mentorships feeding with the interns, the co-ops, and the apprenticeship and or further education and into the workforce. Because every element we want to tie in the and or further education in everything we do for lifelong learning. I think we'll all agree that there are certain things that we must make sure that our youngsters are prepared for when they leave school, that they are well schooled in the fundamental skills, that they're capable of adapting to changes in the workplace as well as changes in the society, that they're job ready for work that is available today and available to learn tomorrow's skills and change and adapt to those changing skills that you heard Mr. Perry talk about in his industry and others here. So basically, sir, that's the summary of what we're doing with the industry and tying all the mentorships and partnership agreements together into a continuum.
Thank you very much, Mr. Phillips.
Thank you.
Any questions from the committee members?
Mr. Phillips, do you include the service industry?
Yes.
You do. I really want to make a point on this. I think if there's something missing in our agenda tonight is that, one, we get the impression that the emphasis is on the high-tech, the coming age of competing in the greater world market. The fact of the matter is, the service industry is really where the growth is going to be in the next 25 years.
Yes.
Charge. And more particularly, the tourism industry, which I have to represent, is Virginia's number 2 industry and damn near the number 1 industry. But it's an industry under great stress. And one of the reasons it's under stress is that programs like apprenticeship programs for training emerging chefs is being curtailed for the governor's budget cutback. So I hope we don't lose sight of some very successful programs that are already underway and are working, and we're going out and we're creating new things that we really don't need. And I have heard very little tonight about the service industry, which is a very important part of Virginia's future.
Representatives from the service industry are in this training committee group and looking at the food service industry, looking at the tourism industry, looking at hotel, motel, what we call facility maintenance type people, and trying to get interns, co-ops, and apprenticeships involved in those areas, because we recognize that's the fastest growing industry also. So we're not looking at just high tech. We're trying to look at taking the average ability student, and in some cases the below average ability, or I should say underachieving student, and get those individuals motivated and directly involved. The other thing that we're addressing is some of the things that's been brought up here this evening pertaining to getting parents more involved. We're talking industry and saying, look, we have the youngsters in the classrooms. Don Bruno has them all in his classrooms, Don Musselman in Hampton and so forth. They can get to the students and they can talk to the students, and we can go in and talk to the students. Who has the parents 8 hours a day? Who can talk to the parent every day and try to educate the parent? That has to be industry. And we're trying to set up some sort of a method where each industry can take this message to their employees on the job. Even if they can't afford to give them release time like Ed Campbell is doing with Mr. Bruno in Newport News. So those are the other things that's involved in this continuum here.
Thank you very much. Any other comments?
I'd like to,
Thank you very much.
Mr.
Yes.
Secretary, I'd like to comment that we have a hotel management, food management
Very much aware of
program that's growing very fast, and we recognize that that's going to be one of the key areas in the future. And we're getting quite a bit of support from the hotel people.
I'm aware of that program.
Any other comments? All right, let us move on to the next panel. Actually, it's one individual. 2+2 Tech Prep Master Technician Program. Dr. Ralph Johnson from New Horizons Technical Center.
Secretary Dyke, Secretary Fromming, and members of the committee. When Bob Templin put me on the program and I said I'd graciously like to do this, he said, Ralph, there's one thing you absolutely have to remember. For God's sake, finish it 5 minutes after 8. In conclusion,
You have 11 hours left.
thank you, sir. You're absolutely right. It didn't say AM or PM. You've heard from several different programs, and I'd like to wind up with one that we're very proud of. And I will try to show you how it fits into both a technical setting and in the human services setting. And that's our 2+2 concept that we've used here on the peninsula. I feel a little bit inadequate because Mr. Phillips, who spoke before me, is literally the father of 2+2 and has made so many of these presentations he could really do it in his sleep, not just to the state of Virginia, but also to a number of groups from around the country. Tech Prep, of course, means many things to many people. You've heard of mentorship tonight, internship, apprenticeship, and co-op. All of that has been alluded to. All of those things are taking place on the peninsula. All of them are being done at New Horizons as a technical center in one form or another, and they're all found in the local school divisions as well as the colleges. But tonight I want to talk a little bit about the 2+2, which is a little different concept. And this particular concept, we feel, just like the others, not only will teach the material and introduce the student to an entire career, but it will do more than that. It will improve their self-concept. And at the end of the talk, I'll tell you why that's true. Master Tech was our first venture. And the Master Technician program started out with electronics and electromechanical technology. And it was designed around the needs of industry, and the committee put that together. But I think about the third line down in the written presentation I gave you says it all. And it's simply as stated when it says, the curriculum is a unique blend of academics, Mr. Barry, vocational education, which will allow the student the best of both worlds, and it does. The academic excellence and economic self-sufficiency through vocational education complete the program. We start with high school students. They'll go on with 2 years at the high school level and then move on into the community college system for their last 2 years, hence the name 2+2. Needless to say, you have to have the basics, and we talk about things like algebra, principles of technology, which is now found in most of our middle schools on the peninsula, some physics, mechanical drawing, and power and transportation. So the impact at the middle schools that you heard about earlier is already beginning to impact on us at their upper end of the secondary level, and no question that it's impacting on the community college. If you'll turn the page, I wanted to show you the list of the original partners, because truly it was a partnership effort involving the community college, New Horizons, and the 5 school divisions, Hampton, Newport News, Pocosin, Williamsburg, and York County. But these are the original partners, and I wanted to show you that because on the business side of the house, some of the partners are still there, NASA, Newport News, SHIP. But some of the partners have changed. Some of the companies have actually been bought out. Some names have changed. But it didn't matter. The model stayed in place. The partners from industry supported it, and they are hiring our students. It was such a good model that now we can move into the human services area that you mentioned a minute ago. We took a look last year at law enforcement. which, as you know, is one of the largest areas in terms of employment and needs, not only on the peninsula but across the state. And it's a tough area. We expanded it to 2 + 2 + 2, which is a unique way of saying the high school, the community college, and the four-year institution. Earlier tonight, if you'll turn to the very last brochure, last page, last brochure, which is on law enforcement. Earlier tonight it was mentioned we need something that would take students through their educational experience, allow them to work, and at the same time say to them, this is the beginning of your educational experience. If you're going to stay in this career, you're going to go on and on and on till the day we die. That's sort of what those 3 hours represent. Starting with a high school, you can go to work and stay in your chosen career and gain your education, or you can go straight up the educational ladder and finish it all in this particular model in 4 years, plus your 2 years at the high school level. Earning credit all the way that will apply. And so again, we mentioned the partners to you because it had to have that particular effort. The law enforcement agencies on one side, involving all of the peninsula and the regional police academy. And then, of course, the educational partners, the same group that you saw before, plus Christopher Newport College. In closing, to give you an example of this model, I think you've seen not only our model tonight, but you've seen 4 presentations ahead of mine. And while I was listening to everybody, just one thing came very, very clear to me. And Secretary Dyke, it goes back to the days of sports. Once I thought, like maybe a lot of other folks, I'd be a great athlete. But I did get into a championship game. And the coach said one thing that I never forgot. We were behind, we were losing, and we looked pretty bad. But he said one thing at halftime. You're in the game, now let's do this. We're going to put in the best players, we're going to run the best plays, we're going to work as a team at all levels. There are no hot dogs, there are no quick fixes, and we're going to start marching toward the opponent's goal. Some of these programs are like your best players. They have the best skills. They already have some proven track records. All we need to do is put them into the game, amalgamate them as a team from grades K all the way through the adult, and the reports that we've been reading for the last several years about America's students and adults being behind will change dramatically overnight. It's a massive effort. And so we think that one of your players should be the 2 + 2, but it's only one of the players. It's not the whole team. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any comments?
What could be easily lost is that what you've heard tonight is a regional approach, starting with middle school and going all through the baccalaureate. Not with the presumption that everyone's meant to go to college, but that we develop the most of every potential of every child and never close the door to going one step further. It includes all the school divisions and many of the businesses and industries. And I think it represents an opportunity, not just for here on the peninsula, but for the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Thank you very much. The 2 + 2 program is one that I have some personal experience with, and I know it is a tremendous program. Indeed, it's a real model for the nation what we've been doing here in Virginia in 2 + 2. I'd like to have a chance to talk with you afterwards because we're going to be participating in a national conference where we're going to hopefully be showcasing what we're doing in 2 + 2. So it's an excellent program. Any other comments for this speaker? Yes, Robert Cooper.
I have one comment. The 2 + 2 does work, and it does work very well, and it's I think a program that turns a light bulb on for many students that otherwise would not be motivated. I know there are many students that perhaps have F's in English, et cetera, but your unique, and I say unique, teachers in this setting that you have indeed turned a lot of light bulbs on for students that otherwise would fall by the wayside, and I commend you for it.
We think it's another avenue.
Thank you very much. Now, we do have a place on the agenda for public comments, and we've had 4 individuals who have signed up to make brief comments at this point. And I'd like to... yeah, I said brief comments. Raymond Duran, I believe it is. I hope I'm not mispronouncing your name. Duran, excuse me, from Thomas Nelson Community College. To be followed by Edie Harrison, Jack Molovinsky, I believe it is, and Roger Hathaway. Unless he's still continuing, unless he wants to waive his comment. Okay. Raymond?
Distinguished panel, thank you for this opportunity to appear before you. Our prosperity in the next 25 years is going to depend upon domestic tranquility and the ability to change. We don't know what kind of technology is in the pipeline ahead for us, but we do have a sense of the attitudes that are going to have to be shaped and reshaped. Black history is about surrogate parenthood. It's about change, it's about meaningful change, it's about purposeful change, and it's about change laced with the effects of technology. This is a tranquil place, and Black history gives us a sense of why, while all the while the world is awash in upheaval. My suggestions are threefold. First, that Black history be made an acceptable component in every curriculum. Second, that Black history be an acceptable alternative to United States history and Western civilization or global history. And third, that people be screened for their sensitivity to Black history before they're hired. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments or reactions by any of the panel members?
Do you really mean replace the knowledge of U.S. history or world history with knowledge of Black history only?
Oh, no, not at all. As an alternative. What happens now is that the counselors are unwilling to let students, in an advisory sense, take Black history.
Oh, I see. As a prerequisite.
And that shouldn't be a barrier.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions? Thank you very much, appreciate it. Next, Edith Harrison from the Virginia Vocational Technical Foundation. She's accompanied by C. Robbie Williams.
Chairman and members of the committee, and Governor Holton, I am Edith Harrison, President of the Virginia Vocational Technical Education Foundation, which I want to tell you briefly about. We were formed in 1987 to help establish partnerships between business and industry and the educational establishment, with vocational and technical education as the means to success. The purpose is to prepare today's youth for the modern technology needed by business and industry to be competitive. In addition, our mission is to see that young people complete school with a marketable skill so that they can be productive members of society. People without training will soon be part of the welfare or the prison system. It is well known that the school model of today and the curriculum was developed many, many years ago, and it doesn't provide for the reality of today's job market. Low-skill factory jobs are vanishing through automation or overseas competition, where workers toil for a fraction of an American wage. Our society used to be able to handle dropouts when low-skill jobs were plentiful. Today, entry-level jobs usually require more than basic skills. Business is facing a smaller birth rate, which means there are less employable youths, in addition to the increased dropout problem. To maintain our standard of living, to reduce the amount of money we must put into welfare and prisons, we must keep today's young on a success track. This is a major undertaking, especially for inner-city schools with more poor, minority, and non-English speaking students, who have the highest dropout and failure rates. Most young people do not go to college. Are we preparing them for the world of work? And it is work that life is organized around. We cannot tolerate a society where a third of the population is the underclass. In the past, business and industry support focused mainly at the college level. Today, in this country, and we've heard a lot about it tonight, the focus is increasingly on the high school and even the grade school level. There are many models in other states that we can look at. For example, some cities have joined with industry in establishing a network of high school academies that combine academic and vocational training with on-the-job experience. These academies are small and self-contained entities housed in some of the most troubled schools in the country, offering specialized training in business, electrical, automotive repair, health, and service industries, and environmental studies. These graduates get jobs upon completion when they graduate, real jobs, and they become taxpayers. Waiting until the college level to do something about this disaster we're facing in this country will never reach thousands of our young people. Our foundation is committed to ensuring that Virginia's youth have a chance in life, and that Virginia business and industry have a supply of workers that will keep the wheels of commerce operating. Our foundation has organized local foundations so that local areas can work directly with business and industry in their communities and the schools in their communities so that they can meet the employment needs of that particular area. We are in the process also of setting up a pilot project of the type I just mentioned in other cities. Our board of directors is made up mainly from the business sector, representing, like our Vice President, Y.B. Williams, who is the Vice President of Newport News Ship, representative from Coors Beer, Leggett Department Stores, West Vaco, to name but a few. We support quality vocational technical education and its availability, because right now it is not uniform in this state. We've heard of wonderful programs here, but unfortunately this is not the case throughout Virginia, and it is tragic, and it's tragic the lives that are really being lost because these people don't have the good fortune to live in this community. We are eager to be a part of your endeavor. Please call upon us and include us in your planning. In our opinion, we must take an obvious but politically bold step. We heard just briefly about the Japanese and about the German system, I think was alluded to. It hasn't been politically popular in this country, but I would urge you, there's plenty of data, and some states have almost adopted it. And that is that kids that aren't going on to college right away get into a quality vocational education program. We must be certain that when kids come out of school, they have a marketable skill, or we are dooming them to an underclass, to prison, to a welfare system. We must cauterize this hemorrhage before we all begin to bleed, because that's where we are. Kids that don't fit in anywhere, these are the kids that are led to drugs, teen pregnancy, and antisocial behavior. Let's look at this problem totally and see that it's just not okay to let kids drop out of school without a marketable skill, because we are dooming them to this underclass. I would like to close with just a couple quotes from an article that was in William Raspberry's column in February. He's quoting somebody else, but let me quote this person. He says, vocational education is not merely an alternative to college for disadvantaged youngsters, but often it is a means to college because it can confer the habits and attitudes that produce college success. The value of vocational education for many young people is not that they can just get a job, that possibly for the first time in their lives, but they can work on something that really interests them. They can experience success. They can see the worth, the self-worth, and the outcome of their efforts. In other words, they become motivated, they develop self-confidence, they learn to persevere, problem solve, work as teams, and take responsibility for their actions. Academic and economic success is less a leap than a series of small steps. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you have any comments or questions, Ms. Harrison? If not, thank you very much, and we appreciate your help and assistance. And we look forward to working with you.
For me, just want to eat with Mr. Williams and Ms. Harrison kind of come by my office several months ago to offer their help. And we really appreciate it and look forward to working with you on it, because you all have been pioneers in this, and it'll be good to work with you.
We look forward to it. Thank you.
The last individual we have signed up is Jack Molovinsky, I believe it is, from Junior Achievement.
Yes, sir. Secretary Dyke, Secretary Fryman, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. It's been a pleasure. I think we'll face this way. Being here to see all of the interaction and everything going on in this room, because essentially this is what Junior Achievement is all about. We in Junior Achievement formed our first business and education partnership in 1919 here in southeastern Virginia in 1966. Last year in Greater Hampton Roads, we formed over 300 of these partnerships to service about 7,000 youngsters. Indeed, a good portion of the people that spoke here tonight I've dealt with either personally or I've dealt with their organization, the shipyard, Mr. Keeling with the phone company, CBAF, Dr. Grunder, Mr. Hathaway over at NASA, Mr. Boyd. Matter of fact, a number of people I'm eating breakfast with tomorrow at a 7 o'clock board meeting, so I will be brief. But more important, I think, addressing what Mr. Perry said, of our 7,000 young people, yes, not all of them are going to college, not all of them are going to tech school. You know, what do you do with this massive average kid? And what about members of the community that do not have the resources of a shipyard, of a phone company, or a VEPCO, or a CBAF? I like to think that you know, we can help there too, because we had partnerships with people that work or own Crispy Corporation. Anybody ever hear of them? Mullins Farm Supply, Virginia School of Hair Design, another board member right here that Nancy Robinson kind of headed up our at-risk program. Last year we got into it. We were going to, you know, try 1 or 2 classes. We ended up with 12 classes, a couple of hundred kids. We're just getting into this now. I've heard at-risk mentioned a couple of different times. I think what I want to say is that if we at Junior Achievement can do anything, it's to lend our support to what you are doing. Our 71 years of expertise, not only to the committee, but to the community in general. And certainly if anybody wants to volunteer, I'll be in the back of the room. I'll be, you know, more than happy to take names or hand out business cards. And primarily, I guess, to the educators in the room. Anybody ever seen this? You know, what do you want to do after school? You know, you like technical education? You know, math? Do you know what day it is? You know, we see this all. If we can avoid that one answer, I call that the answer of the 80s. You know, and the other, why do we have to learn this junk? Somebody asked me that last year. Why do we have to learn this junk? Not why is this germane to what I need to know, and what do we have to learn this junk for? So, I just pledge my support and the support of Junior Achievement and Junior Achievement around the state. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions for Jack? If not, that is the last name we have signed up for public comment. However, is there anyone there who has not had an opportunity to speak who would like to make a comment at this point? If not, we have next on the agenda committee discussion, but I think we've had an opportunity to have some interaction with the speakers already. And unless there's someone here who has a great urge to make a brief report. I will defer to my distinguished colleague, co-chair Secretary Fromme, to summarize the evening and briefly summarize.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn? Ladies and gentlemen, all of you, thank you very, very much. This has been the first of a series of public forums. If they all go half as well and give us half the information that this one did, this council will be able to go into its final meetings and plan writing, I think, extraordinarily well equipped. So to all of you, thank you. A very special thanks to Bob Templin and Thomas Nelson Community College, both for being our host for the physical facility, but also being our spiritual host for the framework of the evening. Bob, let me, I think I can speak, they can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think I speak for everybody here to tell you how tremendously impressed we all have been with what has been done here on the peninsula, and the partners with you, with Thomas Nelson, all of you have done a tremendous job. Thank you for sharing it with us.
Let me just brief, David, can you give the time and the place for our next forums for anyone who?
I'd be happy to, Mr. Secretary.
This is our executive director, David Temple, who is now going to tell us when the next.
On September 5th at Northern Virginia Community College at Alexandria campus at 7 p.m. September 17th, Virginia Highlands Community College in Abbeville at 7 p.m. And September 26th at James Madison University in Harrisonburg at 7 p.m.
And let me point out that this is not intended by any stretch of the imagination to be a 4-year study and academic discussion of this issue. We are prepared to make a submitted plan for action to the governor by December of this year. So we're moving on a pretty fast track. I think we understand what the problems are. The matter here is to come to some closure and put in place a plan that will indeed carry some of these programs across the Commonwealth. So we really appreciate your input, and you will be hearing from us in the very near future. Thank you once again.